Hey everyone, Ridden here, and today I'm coming to you with a quick, impromptu rundown and review of the biographical drama chronicling the betrayal of the young, charismatic deputy chairman of the National Black Panther Party and chairman of the Illinois chapter, Fred Hampton. A film by Shaka King and distributed by Warner Brothers. Here are my thoughts on Judas and the Black Messiah. Welcome back, and thank you for coming. Over the weekend, I had the pleasure of watching the film that I've been waiting for ever since the news broke that the story and individuals it centered upon would be making its way to the big screen. That being the assassination, betrayal, and subversion of Fred Hampton at the hands of the FBI under the direction of J. Edgar Hoover, ultimately leading to his death on December 4th, 1969. To anyone not in the know, Frederick Allen Hampton was a black activist and revolutionary socialist who rose to prominence in the 1960s as chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. At the tender age of 21 years old, he was murdered in the dead of night in his sleep during a raid of his Chicago apartment conducted by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in conjunction with the Chicago Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, during which fellow Panther Mark Clark was also killed and several others were seriously wounded. Being acutely aware of my cultural sensibilities and my political machinations, I went into this film knowing that regardless of how it played out, my spirit would undoubtedly be affected. And I wasn't wrong. Prior to this, I had never seen any work from director and producer Shaka King. And after watching this film, I can guarantee you, moving forward, I will no longer allow myself to be a stranger of his work. I was incredibly impressed with the poignancy and power this film delivered each and every scene with, and how I couldn't manage to pull myself away until the end credits rolled. A feat in and of itself, seeing as the movie reels in at over 2 hours in runtime. The performances from all of the actors involved were fantastic. Best of all, of course, being the leading man, Daniel Kaluuya, who portrayed Hampton in the most beautifully powerful and poetic manner I or anyone could have hoped for. His efforts are supported by a cast of the likes of Dominique Fishback, Ashton Sanders, Algie Smith, Daryl Britt Gibson, Lil Rel Howery, and Dominique Thorne. The film begins in the late 1960s, following William Bill O'Neill, portrayed by none other than Lakeith Stanfield, a petty criminal who's busted for trying to steal a car while posing as an FBI agent. In the film, Special Agent Roy Mitchell of the FBI, played by Jesse Plemons, then offers O'Neill the chance to go home and not do any prison time if he agrees to work undercover for the FBI by way of infiltrating the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party and getting close to Hampton. While taking some liberties, the film did stay true to reality in O'Neill's involvement being related to car theft, as in real life O'Neill and a friend stole a car and he wasn't contacted until months later. As instructed, O'Neill becomes a hang-around of the headquarters and does in fact make his way into Hampton's inner circle. Around the same time, Hampton is currently in the midst of doing some of his most significant work, helping to form and found the multiracial Rainbow Coalition, along with William Preacher Man Fesperman of the Young Patriots organization and Jose Cha-Cha Jimenez, founder of the Young Lords. During his stint as an infiltrator, O'Neill relays intel back to Mitchell, who in return compensates him financially. Throughout the film, we do begin to see a bit of a struggle in the character of O'Neill, as it seems he begins to grow fond of Hampton and possibly even a believer of his movement. Stanfield excelled in his role, pulling off the task of making you both hate his character while at the same time admiring the dedication of the man behind the character to his craft and the brilliance of his performance. When eventually a fugitive party member by the name of George Sams shows up at the Illinois office, we see the reality begin to set in for O'Neill when he learns of the alleged gruesome crimes committed against informants and moles once found out by the party. We later find out that Sams is in fact an FBI informant, having turned state's evidence in return for a reduced charge of second-degree murder in the Alex Rackley case, one that would eventually become one of the most controversial Panther cases of all. At the behest of the director of the FBI, at the height of the government's fears of the Panther's powers, especially Fred's, FBI tried to find evidence that Hampton did in fact do drugs. As he was clean, they fell short and eventually ended up arresting him in the midst of an instance of the Panther program Free Breakfast for Children, charging him with the theft of $71 worth of ice cream bars. In a comparison of fact to fiction, and to settle any lingering feelings about whether or not O'Neill was a guy put in between a rock and a hard place, it is interesting to note that the the tense relationship portrayed thus in the film between Mitchell and O'Neal on the backs of Plemons and Stanfield isn't exactly representative of how things were in real life. Their dynamic was actually much more relaxed, even so far as O'Neal visiting Mitchell's home, meeting his kid, and having dinner with him. In later years, O'Neal even referred to Mitchell as a role model, saying that he trusted him at a time when not many people trusted anyone. He cooperated with Mitchell in laying out the floor plan for Hampton's apartment, ultimately being compensated $300. We also see firsthand the shootout between the Panthers and the cops, which leads to the burning down of the headquarters. Cops claim that there was a sniper on the roof, which prompted their response. Director Shaka King said that this whole scene was put together as it's known that cops were constantly prodding and picking with the party. And when Fred is eventually released from prison to the surprise of Deb being pregnant, we rejoice for the brief moment the film allows, as we return to the headquarters and its restored interior, speaking to the hard-working commitment of the party and the community. The directive within the Bureau then comes down to make sure that Fred isn't allowed to return to prison if his plea agreement is overturned, allowing him to become a martyr inside as prison-made Huey P. Newton a celebrity. Coming into this movie privy of the knowledge of how it all plays out made the remainder of the movie fairly uncomfortable for me, as I spent the rest of the time waiting to see how it would all play out, in comparison to the history of it all. I must admit there was a part of me that hoped maybe we would get a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood ending, where history is flipped on its head and things played out just a bit differently the way it should have. Back at Fred's apartment, we see a gathering of everyone, as plans are beginning to be made to possibly shepherd Fred and Deb out of the country, to which Fred refutes and tells the doctor to use the funds given to him by the Crowns to build a medical clinic in the middle of the West Side and name it after fallen comrade Jake Winters, who was killed in a shootout prior with the cops after finding out that fellow member Jimmy Palmer died in the care of the county hospital after being arrested during the shootout. The scenes following this are by far the hardest to watch, especially O'Neal offering to give Hampton another drink. In an interview recently, Stanfield detailed how difficult shooting this particular scene was and how there were several takes, some of which even involved him handing Hampton a glass. Ultimately, the clip that ended up being used did the job. I must also talk about the phenomenal acting job done by Dominique Fishback in the closing scenes of the raid, as we get a close-up shot of her face as her character Deb listens on to the murder of Fred. In as much shock at the utter brutality of it all as I'm sure you were as well. The directing choice to play this scene out in this way is also another testament to the brilliance of Shaka King and all involved in bringing it into existence. In closing, Judas and the Black Messiah not only lived up to each and every expectation I could have or did have, but also soared above any I didn't dare having. My hope as a lover of all things film has and will always be, when watching movies based on actual events and the lives of titans who came before, that justice is done to the individual and their legacy whilst entertaining and educating the masses simultaneously. Done with the blessing of Hampton's family, Judas and the Black Messiah, in my personal opinion, does just that and then more. I would highly recommend this movie to you, as I have already recommended it to my friends and family. As was the experience of viewing the film, it's been a pleasure to have you here with us tonight for this review. If you've enjoyed your experience here, I'll review any and all films I have the pleasure of watching, and I also do weekly reviews for all Disney Plus, Marvel, and Star Wars shows. And if you feel so inclined, I hope you will return to check out more of our content. Again, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that bell for notifications if you've enjoyed our content here tonight. Jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And while you're at it, be sure to check out some of the other content here on the channel. All of the necessary links are listed here below for you to keep up with the coming content and shareables. Please be sure to follow me on all social media platforms. Or just the one you use most frequently. We are slowly but surely building a community here, and I would personally love for you to be a part of that. And last but not least, we have a merch store. So whether you see something you like or just simply want to support the channel, head on over to our shop and grab something. Or grab everything. But again, thank you so much, guys and gals, for visiting here with us today. I really appreciate each and every viewing minute of your time you've given us. There's loads of content we'll be sending your way, so I'll be seeing you. But for now, be blessed. And it was written.
Across the nighttime, the city inside. Yeah, hear her voice, shake my window.